governor of the Central Bank, Sanusi, came to Lagos and said, if you don't remove fuel subsidy, Nigeria will collapse. This country is not going to collapse. Those who are going to collapse are those who are cheating the Nigerian people.
In a swift response to President Jonathan's decision to remove fuel subsidy in 2012, the opposition parties, civil society, and trade unions mobilized fellow Nigerians to occupy the streets and major cities in protest. The protest, which was officially called Occupy Nigeria Protest, began on the 2nd of January 2012. In this edition of Hispool Media, we re-examine the Occupy Nigeria protest and the subsidy regime in Nigeria, as well as a recent pronouncement about subsidy by the new president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, during his inauguration as president on May 29, 2023.
On fuel subsidy, unfortunately, the budget that I've glimpsed before I assumed office and what I've heard is that no provision is there for fuel subsidy. So fuel subsidy is gone.
Welcome to Hispool Media In-Depth History. But first, what is fuel subsidy in Nigeria? Fuel subsidy are a form of government intervention to reduce the cost of fuel. This is done by providing direct financial support to oil companies and as such, reduce the cost of the product to consumers. Subsidies were first implemented in Nigeria in the 1970s in reaction to the 1973 oil price shock. In order to reduce the impact of price hikes resulting from this shock, the government proposed energy subsidies. The Subsidies Directive was later approved in 1977. Between 2006 and 2020, Nigeria has spent over 10 trillion naira in fuel subsidy. In 2011, the government of President Goodluck Jonathan announced that it will no longer continue with fuel subsidy with effect from January 1, 2012. Following this decision of government, socio-political protest movement erupted in Nigeria on Monday, January 2nd, 2012. The protest took place across major Nigerian cities including Ojota and Surulere, both parts of metropolitan Lagos, Abuja, Kano and Minna, the capital of Niger State. It also took place in the British High Commission in London and some other places around the world. The protests were characterized by civil disobedience, civil resistance, strike actions, demonstrations, and online activism. Protesters adopted social media sites such as Twitter and Facebook as a weapon to fight the government policy. These protests, among other factors, marked the beginning of the fall of the Jonathan regime that culminated in his failure to clinch a second term in 2015. However, after the Jonathan government lost its re-election bid in 2015, the new government led by General Muhammadu Buhari retired, increased the price of fuel from 87 naira to 145 naira and later to 189 naira per litre, with little or no resistance from the people. So, what could have been responsible for this? Well, analysts believe that Nigerians were beginning to understand the dangers of the continuation of the fuel subsidy regime. Others believe that it was because of the goodwill associated with the emergence of Buhari as president. Whatever may have been the case, it later became clear that fuel subsidy was still in effect. The government was still spending billions to subsidize fuel for her people. Well, as you may know, Nigeria is the largest producer of crude oil in Africa and unfortunately the largest importer of refined petrol as well. This is such an irony. At that time, Nigeria produced about 2.4 million barrels of crude oil per day, but this oil would then be exported abroad to be refined. The country in turn imported the refined oil to be used by her citizens. Just to be specific, Nigeria imports about 70% of its gasoline needs, about 250,000 barrels per day of petroleum products into the country for sale to its citizens. Now, you may ask, why is this the case? Well, due to years of corruption and neglect, the local refineries remain inoperative. Secondly, there have been cases of alleged corruption and massive looting of government funds through the fuel subsidy regime. In other words, the people that are supposed to fight this established corruption are the major beneficiaries from it. But why is there so much disapproval of the removal of fuel subsidy in the country? Well, majority of Nigerians lived in multidimensional poverty and survive on less than $2 a day. These people consider cheap petrol as the only tangible benefit they receive from the government. In addition, the economy is heavily dependent on crude oil due to absence of essential infrastructure and services such as constant electricity. A consequence of this is that other seemingly unrelated items are tied to the price of fuel, as has been the case from previous price increase. Also, due to the absence of stable electricity, gasoline generators are a common energy alternative for small businesses and residences. These, among other factors, are responsible for the widespread disapproval of the removal of fuel subsidy in Nigeria. Now, during the Jonathan years, specifically in 2011, the removal of subsidy was announced. This was to take effect from Sunday, 1st of January 2012, as announced by the Executive Secretary of the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency (PPPRA), Reginald Stanley. As a consequence, protesters blocked fuel stations and formed human blockade along motorways. The trade unions in Nigeria declared indefinite strike and mass demonstration to begin on Monday, 9th January 2012. The condition to back down was that government must reverse the decision to remove fuel subsidy. Union leaders claimed that they have the backing of all Nigerian workers to embark on the strike action. The Central Bank of Nigerian Governor Sanusi Lamido Sanusi had told the BBC that subsidy was unsustainable. According to him, payment of subsidy cost the government about 8 billion last year. Previous governments have tried to remove the subsidy but have backed down in the face of widespread public protest and reduced the amount instead. The protest resulted in a certain number of fatalities. For instance, on the 3rd of January 2012, one Mr. Muhyiddin Mustafa, 23 years old, was reportedly shot dead by police in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital. However, the police denied the report and claimed that Muhyiddin was stabbed by fellow protesters. Also, on the 9th of January 2012, Mr. Ademola Aderinde was shot and killed by a police DPO in Ogba area of Lagos during the protest. The police officer was arrested, but it is not clear what happened to the case. The Occupy Nigeria protest was planned to hold in Eagle Square, Abuja, and the Nigerian Embassy in London simultaneously on the 6th of January 2012. On the 3rd day of the protest, a crowd of youth went on rampage, setting fire to buildings, including government and political party offices and cars in the Niger State capital, Minna. Former President Ibrahim Babangida's office building was among those that were attacked. As a show of solidarity to the plight of Nigerians back home, the Occupy Nigeria protest also occurred in some other countries around the world. Protests were held at the Nigerian High Commission in London on the 6th of January 2012 and was followed by another at the World Bank Complex in Washington, D.C. on the 9th of January 2012. Nigerian embassies in Belgium and South Africa were also occupied in the second week of January as part of the protest. On Thursday, the 5th of January 2012, the Nigerian Labour Congress issued an ultimatum to the federal government promising to halt the economy of the country by Monday, 9th of January 2012. After the emergency meeting of the Federal Executive Council held in Abuja, the Minister of Information, Mr. Labaran Mako, informed newsmen that the government was not oblivious of the pains inflicted on Nigerians as a result of the new policy. According to him, government had commenced a massive mass transit scheme aimed at cushioning the effects of the subsidy removal on transportation. He further claimed that about 1,600 diesel-powered mass transit vehicles would be distributed. However, Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and Petroleum Resources Minister Daizani Alison Madueke was conspicuously absent from the meeting. Iweala had threatened to resign should the government rescind the decision to end the subsidy regime. It is necessary to recall that the opposition was at the heart of mobilizing Nigerians for the protest. The discussion about the removal of fuel subsidy has remained on the front burner of Nigerian politics since then. General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, who had initially claimed that subsidy is a scam, failed to end fuel subsidy throughout his 8 years rule as president from 2015 to 2023.
If anybody said he is subsidizing anything, he is a fraud. So all these people talking about subsidy, who is subsidizing him?
He has, however, set June 30th, 2023 for the end of fuel subsidy regime in Nigeria. However, Buhari's successor, President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, announced in his inauguration speech on May 29, 2023 that fuel subsidy is gone.
The fuel subsidy is gone.
This announcement prompted immediate reaction from fuel marketers across the country. Immediately after the speech, fuel stations across the country were closed and prices of fuel went up instantly. Marketers started selling the product for between 600 naira and above in some parts of the country. While it has become a general consensus that fuel subsidy should be removed, it remains to be seen if the approach of this government is right or wrong. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Click here to watch our video on how corruption started in Nigeria. Remember to book the like button on this video, and if you are new to our channel, please subscribe and enable notification by clicking the bell icon, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.